Welcome into the College Football Recruiting Show alongside Blair and Gulo. I am Emily Proud. A reminder, as I always do at the beginning of the show, to hit that like button and make sure that you are subscribed. We have an absolutely loaded show today. We are so excited to bring you the live commitment of five-star tight end Linkon Cure. He is ready to go, as are we, but we have some business to take care of first. Blair, I want to ask you, first off, about the situation at Utah. I find this extremely interesting. You've got the defensive coordinator, Morgan Scalley, already being named the head coach in waiting for when Kyle Whittingham eventually hanging up his whatever proverbial coaching cleats. What impact does this potentially have on recruiting when you already have a head coach in waiting?
It brings a lot of stability to those recruiting efforts. Morgan Scalley has been there for a long time. He played at Utah in the early 2000s. And Kyle Whittingham has become an institution in Salt Lake City. He's been the head coach since 2005, so this will be his 20th season at the helm for the Utes. And when recruits are wondering what the future of the program is going to look like without Kyle Whittingham, it's really important for them to get out in front of it and say, hey, Morgan Scalley is going to be our next head coach. It brings stability to really a program that has been built on stability.
Talk about stability. Kyle Whittingham entering his 20th season at the helm. Again, no signs of slowing down. This is just if and when the 64-year-old plans to retire. That is just something that we wanted to begin the show with. I'm curious from your perspective, as somebody that covers a lot of things happening in the state of Utah. But Blair, we had so many commitments happen over the weekend, so let's go ahead and hit you with some headlines. We call it Commit HQ, and man, that was running this weekend. Let's start with four-star linebacker Noah Michael, the Bonita backer, joining a top 10 Aggies class. Blair, what does this addition mean for Mike Elko's 2025 haul?
It's really significant, Emily. It's a recruiting win because they were up against Oregon and USC. A&M now has 3 of the top 4 commitments on their list from Southern California. Mike Elko is doing a great job of really attacking an area of need. And Mikel is a gifted linebacker. He should be able to make a ton of plays in that A&M defense.
Elsewhere, how about those Terps? Mike Locksley landing his highest-ranked quarterback commit at Maryland when Elite 11 QB Malik Washington picking his home state team. It's hard to truly understate what this means for Maryland, but Blair, how did Locksley, we'll say, lock it up?
The relationship was really important here, Emily. Malik Washington actually told us at the Elite 11 finals a couple weeks ago that Maryland never pressured him into committing early. That really resonated with him. It showed him that they were invested in him as a recruit, and it's paid off now that Malik Washington readies himself to recruit for Maryland.
Elsewhere in the top 247, the number 5 tight end in the 2025 class, Desan Brame, committing to Oregon. The Kansas product joins a top 5 Ducks class and brings what to it, Blair?
One of my favorite players that I was able to watch in person this offseason. Tremendous physical ability at the position of need for Oregon, which hasn't signed a top 24/7 tight end since the 2021 class when the Ducks landed 2 that cycle. Brame is big, he's athletic, he's a great pass catcher, and a player I could see making a huge impact from day one in Eugene.
We've got another one, a top 40 prospect, Dijon Lee, committing to Alabama over the weekend. The Mission Viejo cornerback locked it in with the Tide. What does this addition mean for what Kalen DeBoer is trying to do?
Bama now has its cornerstone defensive back in this class, a long 6'4", 190-pound corner with really good ball skills. I think the upside is through the roof here, and we might be looking at a future all-SEC type of impact with Dijon Lee. And Emily, they call him Mustard, so already one of the better nicknames on that roster.
Love it. All right, happening this afternoon, top 247 edge Smith Arugbo committing to Texas over just official today, SEC rival Oklahoma. And breaking just now, Zadarius Rainey-Saleh, a current 4-star linebacker, has officially committed to Washington. He is the top-ranked player in the state and plans to suit up for the hometown Huskies. Let's welcome in now our national recruiting analyst, Brandon Huffman, and director of scouting, Andrew Ivins. We're going to do a little Future 50 recap, but add in some recruiting intel. But before we get into all of that, Huff, your reaction initially to Zadarius Rainey-Saleh and just the overall chaos that the month of June and now as we enter July has brought in terms of commitments. Oh. Sounds like we are having some audio issues with Brandon Huffman, so we'll go to Andrew Ivins on this one. You've been tracking just the chaos that we've seen, all the commitments, the rankings have been moving up and down this month. What's your reaction to everything we've seen?
Well, Emily, I was scared that was my computer, and I hear what Huffman had to say. No, look, this has kind of turned into commitment season. In July 4th specifically so, the past couple of cycles, that's really when kids have made decisions now that summer official visits are a thing. And really, for me, what I've been keeping my eye on is, the jockeying in the team rankings. It seems like there's a handful of schools that are going to have a chance at the #1 ranked class, but a lot of coaching staffs, they're done with the visits. They're heading off to vacation. And before they do that, before they start preseason camp, they want to lock in as many of these guys as they can. So we've seen a ton of big names come off the board the past few days. We saw it this past weekend. You guys just rattled through them. We're going to have more here in the coming days and really in the coming weeks. And I think we're going to enter August and we're going to have a good idea, all right, who has the top recruiting class in the country? And then, what are those other schools that have made moves in the team rankings?
I mean, recruiting is so hot that it's frying the audio on my microphone, and that's what we have going for us right now. There's just so much action going on, we can't even remember to hit mute or unmute. But with Rainey-Saleh's commitment, I mean, that's a big pickup for Jedd Fisch. He wanted to start to make a big presence in the state of Washington. He was able to get the #2 player and the #4 player a week ago, but today to get the #1 player. If you guys remember, he announced on our show back on the day of the national championship game, chose the Huskies, and then 4 days later, Kalen DeBoer left for Alabama. He almost committed to Florida State a few days before that at the All-American Bowl, but ultimately picked Washington. And now he comes all the way back and stays home to go to the Huskies. And I think you're going to see, a lot of these guys that are still available not be as loyal to the soil as Washington fans like to say. There's a couple other guys that are coming off the board here in the next couple of days. Marco Jones out of the Bay Area will announce on Tuesday. Caleb Edwards, the #1 offensive recruit in Northern California, also announcing on Tuesday. SEC schools are leading for it. So we're seeing as conferences are falling apart in these last couple of days, some conferences are coming to an end, other conferences are expanding. Those new conferences and those new schools in those conferences might be seeing some players outside their normal footprint calling that school home.
Andrew, you heard Huff there mention Caleb Edwards, the big tight end from Northern California, as well as Marco Jones, a 4-star edge hybrid linebacker that we really like out here in the Golden State. What do you think of those two prospects as recruits and as players?
Well, Caleb Edwards, I know Huffman over there is a big fan of him, a guy we saw at the National Combine. We've seen him at a ton of events. The first thing that stands out about him, you said big, Blair. I mean, he is long, 6'5", 235 pounds. He's got a monster catch radius. What stands out to me about Caleb, aside from the size, is the fact that he has inline experience as a blocker. He's played in an offense that features a ton of 12 and 22 personnel. He can go up and get the football. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Los Angeles Chargers tight end Donald Parham, who had a basketball background. Caleb Edwards, another multi-sport athlete, so a lot to like with him. Marco Jones, he's one of the more unique, I would say, second-level defenders on the West Coast. He strikes people. He can fit into a variety of different roles. I think you could deploy him as a situational edge rusher, but overall just a high-floor type of prospect. Someone's going to be getting a guy that's ready to go day one, and I think he can do a lot of different things, and that's why so many different schools are involved. He can fit an odd front, an even front. I just love the motor and how he plays fast. Like I said, he's going to pop people and he's going to roll through his hips. So someone's going to get someone that can make plays in the box.
All right, let's go ahead and get to some Future 50 talk. A star-studded event this weekend in Florida. Andrew, you were there. Highly anticipated performance from the #1 player in the class of 2026, and that is quarterback Faison Brandon. How'd he look?
He looked like the real deal. I'll say this: Faison Brandon, that check-in, he had his hair back in some rows. I didn't recognize him at first glance, but I was like, I want this guy on my team. Turns out it's the #1 player in the class of 2026. It was a deep group of quarterbacks. You had 6-7 guys throwing. I thought Faison Brandon, during the camp session on Saturday morning, he was the most consistent of the bunch. I also like what we saw from him on Friday night. They did some 5-on-5, so it wasn't 7-on-7. It was 5-on-5 flag football. That's because they're preparing for the 2028 Olympic Games. Remember, flag football is coming. USA football was out there. I thought Faison Brandon threw an accurate football. He took care of it. This is what we wanted to see from this guy. And we've talked about the athlete in the past. He can beat you with his legs. You can't really do that in this camp setting. You're not really moving around all that much. But I thought it was a solid showing for him. What was also notable, when he checked in, all the other quarterbacks that were there, and these are some of our top-ranked guys, you could tell right away they all thought that Faison Brandon was kind of the alpha. So really, really strong performance of him. He's a one-year starter at Grimsley High School, but we love his developmental upside, what he's going to be. I expect a big junior season from him.
And he'll enter his junior season having made a decision. He told Anna Adams of 24/7 Sports last week that he's down to a Final Four that includes Alabama, LSU, Tennessee, and North Carolina State. Now, this is looking like it could be a Tennessee-Alabama battle for him, for the #1 player in the country in the 2026 class, and both of those two schools are making a big pitch to get him. They both are really trying to push this cycle. We're seeing quarterbacks committing earlier and earlier in that 2026 class, and so Brandon actually moved up the date of when he was planning to announce. He was planning to do it a little bit later in the fall. Now he'll do it on August 3rd. It'll be down to those 3 SEC schools and the ACC school in NC State. But again, it's looking more like it might be a top 2 rather than a top 4 with Tennessee and Alabama. He said he's ready to make a decision. He wants to enter his junior season without any distractions, and we'll know where he's heading on August 3rd.
Andrew, when you read the top performers over at 24/7 Sports from this Future 50 event, Zadarian Morgan's another one that drew a lot of rave reviews. What can you tell us about his showing?
Instant eye catcher. Zadarian Morgan was a late arrival, but you couldn't miss him on Saturday. This was a really talented group of pass catchers. I think the guys that put on the Future 50 for Under Armour, they did an excellent job of getting big, large athletes, guys that can go and get the football. To me, Zadarian Morgan, he is super smooth, yet he is very explosive. We saw him in routes on air. He came down with anything that really entered his zip code out on the perimeter. This is a guy that we shot up all the way from unranked to #20 overall when we expanded that top 247 back in April. That's because we liked what we saw from him at an Under Armour camp in Nashville. At the time, he had just a few scholarship offers, but this is a name that everyone needs to know. Alabama leads on the crystal ball. Ohio State's involved. Everyone is going to be after Zadarian Morgan, and that's because he's a mismatch, right? Catch and run. He can do it all. I thought it was an encouraging showing for him alongside some of his peers, right? A lot of these other guys have a ton of hype behind them. Zadarian Morgan made a name for himself over the weekend.
And that's a name that Alabama would love to add to the commitment list. Whether they have to do it and a little bit further down the line, or whether it can happen sooner rather than later, the Tide would love to keep the in-state kid there, but they've got to deal with Auburn. Their cross-state Iron Bowl rival is also in that mix for him. Florida State, which had Keon Coleman last year, do really well in that system under Mike Norvell. They're a factor. And then Ohio State, which has been seemingly picking and choosing who they wanted at receiver over the last 7, 8, 10 years. They're also a factor. But Alabama with Jamarcus Shepard, you look at the development of Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, and Jalen Polk, who were all drafted in April, with the development that they had under Shepard. Now he's at Alabama. He's got Kalen DeBoer as the head coach there. And you've got Nick Sheridan, who was a part of the Washington offense with Michael Penix there. That's attractive to receivers, and it's going to be something that with Ohio State and their track record, they're going to have competition now with Alabama, and then they're not going to want to lose an in-state player. So right now the Tide are doing everything they can to hold on to Morgan and keep him in-state for college.
All right, I want to ask about another 2026 five-star Jet. Washington could be referred to as an athlete. I know we use that term in the football sense, but man, he's also the nephew of Kobe Bryant and is pretty prolific on the basketball court too. But Andrew, on the field, how did he fare this weekend?
Well, he had the takeaway of the weekend, made a one-handed interception. He looked like he climbed an imaginary ladder back there. This is a kid that weighed in at just over 200 pounds. You're right, we list him as an athlete. Early on, he was kind of identified as a wide receiver, but it's clear his ceiling is highest somewhere on defense. It could be at safety, it could be maybe as an overhang linebacker, but the way he moves at his size, you see at 6'4", again, listed there at 175. He has put on some good weight. I think his ability to flow downhill and locate the football is very unique in this class. He's a guy that you just want to take him now and figure it out later. So Jet Washington, instant eye catcher in that DB line. Really good in the footwork drills on Saturday. Everyone's going to be after this kid, and that's because he's a rare athlete, and he moves extremely well, like I said.
Yeah, he mentioned a couple of the schools that are really standing out to him right now: Notre Dame, Oregon, Alabama, and Tennessee. But it was the school just a couple miles down the road from where his uncle Kobe Bryant starred at the old Staples Center at USC. He said he grew up watching USC. He's obviously got those ties to Los Angeles with his uncle being a local legend in Los Angeles for his career with the Lakers. His cousin attends USC. So it's certainly going to be a school that's going to be a factor for him in the long run. But one caveat there, the Trojans have yet to offer. We'll see if maybe with Lincoln Riley kind of striking out on some of the guys he had commitments from down in the Southeast, if he starts to move his focus a little bit more west in the 2026 class moving forward. Washington also said that Ohio State, for obvious reasons, is another school that he's attracted to. And then UCLA, also given those Los Angeles ties, another school that he's hoping will get involved with an offer at some point. But keep an eye on the Trojans there if they extend an offer to the nephew of Kobe Bryant.
Andrew, we are about to head out to the great state of Kansas to hear and get the reveal from Linkon Cure, one of the elite tight ends in the country. I want to ask you, since you're a quote, tight end guy, what makes him such a special player?
Well, he checks off all the boxes, right? He's a large perimeter wide receiver at this stage. And when you look towards the NFL draft, a lot of these tight ends that go day one, day two, they aren't playing tight end in high school. They're more outside wide receivers. They're also multi-sport athletes. Linkon Cure is just that. Kansas 3A back-to-back champ in the 300-meter hurdles. He also led his team to the state finals in basketball, scored 14 points in that title game. He can do it all. And I also think what stands out about Linkon Cure, the work ethic. I was with Tom Lloyd on Thursday right before the Future 50. He was on the phone with Linkon Cure. Lincoln was finishing up some farm work out there in Kansas. He was covered in mud. He said, I'm the hardest working five-star there is out there. I might have to agree with them. I don't know how many guys are moving around hay and digging trenches in the offseason, but he's a guy with ball skills. I think he's got a ton of growth potential, having sized him up at the Battle Miami camp or tournament back in January. A guy to like a lot. Kind of reminds me last cycle's Carter Nelson, who finished very high on my freaks list.
Andrew Ivins, Brandon Huffman, thank you both so much for being here. Of course, you can read more about the Future 50 event and all the latest commitments and recruiting news, which are coming fast and furious, over at 247sports.com. Also, listen to the 247 Sports Football Recruiting Podcast with Andrew Ivins and Cooper Patagna. New episodes drop Tuesday and Wednesday. You can watch right here on the 247 Sports YouTube page or listen wherever you get your podcasts. Five-star tight end Linkon Cure is set to make his college choice in minutes. The Goodland, Kansas native has wowed our scouting team with his high school tape and impressive numbers on the track. He is a two-time Kansas champion in track and an all-state talent on the football field. So let's take a look at his prospect profile. He is one of the top players in the state of Kansas. He is the number 2 tight end in the country and number 26 overall player in the 2025 class. He has narrowed it down to 4 finalists. We've got 2 in his home state, Kansas and Kansas State. Also, Oregon and Texas A&M are in the mix. So without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome in Linkon Cure. Linkon, when we were getting you hooked up, you were saying you're a little nervous. Apparently it's a full crowd in there. How are you feeling now?
Yeah. Let me show them off real quick. It's packed house.
Wow. A lot of people watching online, too, waiting to see where you are headed. Before we get to your official announcement, we just have a few questions for you. First off, not sure if you were able to hear our director of scouting, Andrew Ivins, just gush about the kind of prospect that you are, but it says enough that he named you a 5-star. He said that you check all the boxes. What does it mean to you to know that you are one of the most highly sought after prospects in the nation?
It really means everything to me. To have that 5-star affiliated with my name. So yeah, I set that goal a while ago, and I worked, every single day. I worked myself to exhaustion. So to have those 5 stars, it absolutely means everything to me.
Lincoln, you were out here in California earlier this offseason for the Cali Power event. I remember talking to you at the hotel check-in at the lobby, and you were talking about trading in equipment bag for an equipment bag because you were going from sport to sport to sport. Obviously, that isn't a thing that you're able to do alone or by yourself. Who do you have there with you to thank, and who's sharing this moment with you?
Yeah, so I have my dad here and my mom here, and then obviously, just to thank the community. I have one of the best communities in the world, and they always have my back, so that means everything to me.
And they certainly showed up today. Again, a huge community online waiting to hear where you are headed. Lincoln, the floor is all yours.
I try to keep this short and sweet. First and foremost, I'd like to thank God for the blessing of an opportunity to have the experiences and be in the position I am today. None of this was possible without my faith. Thank you to everyone who came out today to support me in my decision. It really does mean the world to me that I have an amazing community that continues to be there for me. As you all know, this process was quite literally a dream come true. I remember going to bed every single night as a kid, promising myself that one day I'd be the one catching touchdowns for my favorite colleges. Some see it as a dream, but I promised myself I'd make it my future. Me and my brother Leighton would go out every single day and throw the football around. We would ask for real conditioned college football helmets every single Christmas just so we could feel a little bit more like our favorite players while hitting each other. We would go out and get all our friends around the block and play every chance we got. Unfortunately, that's probably where most of our injuries and fights happened, but I know every single person there, that was, those are memories that we'd never forget. But, we breathe and we live sports as much as me and Leighton compete with each other, and I'll never admit it to him, but I don't think he'll ever understand how much I look up to him as a player and as a person. Thank you to all the coaches that I have had an opportunity to play and work for. Thank you to each and every one of you for the impact you have made in my life. I promise it has not gone unnoticed, and I'm so appreciative of the knowledge and leadership you have instilled in me. Thank you for pushing me and demanding greatness out of me every single day. Thank you for the times you guys have pulled me aside and made sure I kept my head up when things weren't going the best. Thank you for always reminding me of my potential and the impact that I could have on my team. Thank you for the time and the energy you sacrificed and spent away from your families just so you could come be a coach and a role model to us kids. Thank you for stepping aside and letting me be a leader. Thank you to all my family for always being there for me. As you can see, we got a lot of Cures in the crowd, so I always look forward to holidays just so I can be around all my grandparents, uncles, aunts, and cousins. All of you always made me appreciate what it meant to be a part of a close family like ours and always have each other's backs. It's one of the things I always remember and value about my life. Thank you for making me feel loved. Thank you to all my friends throughout this process. My best memories were always spent with you guys, no matter what sort of thing we were doing. I wish I could break down some memories, but they're just too many. Thank you for all of those. Thank you guys for treating me as Lincoln and nothing more. Thank you guys for being my brothers. Thank you to all the collegiate coaches who I was blessed to be recruited by. It was a lot of fun getting to go experience things I only got to watch on TV. Thank you guys for all the visits you made out to Goodland to see me and my family. Thank you for all the visits I got to make to your colleges. One of the hardest things about this process was only getting to choose one school. It was truly amazing getting to develop relationships that go far beyond football, and I will forever cherish that. And last but not least, thank you to my mom and dad. From the moment I was born, you guys raised me the right way and told me to be a leader every day. Thank you for taking me to all my travel league games and demanding me to do better. Thank you for all the time and money you spent on me just so I could be happy. Thank you for all those times we argued. Thank you for pushing me to my limit every chance you got. Thank you for all the sacrifices you made for me. Thank you for being my parents. I promise it's all going to pay off one day. You guys are the real heroes. And to all the kids watching, no matter where you are or what you want to do, it's possible to reach your dreams. It's possible for each and every one of you. to be in the seat I am today. I'm a living example of it. I believe in you, believe in yourself. It's you against you. Throughout this process, I have not forgotten who I am and where I come from. I pride myself on staying humble and staying true to myself. I can't sit here and say this was even slightly easy. I pushed myself to exhaustion every chance I got. I struggled mentally because I wanted it so bad and refused to fail. I worked myself to tears. I dealt with a crazy amount of pressure and stress on me to be the person athlete I am today. All that is just a slight fraction of it, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I loved every second of it. I love the lonely hours. I love being able to work as hard as I have. I love and am so proud to be able to say that I am from out in the middle of nowhere, Goodland, Kansas. But I'm not done yet, and I'm nowhere close to where I'm going to be. Thank you all for being a part of my journey, as I hope to be a part of yours. This is just the beginning. So with all of that, for the next 3 to 4 years, my story will continue at Kansas State University.
There you have it. Breaking news. 5-star tight end Linkon Cure has picked the Kansas State Wildcats. Linkon, take us back. What was the moment when you made this decision? All right, it seems like we have unfortunately lost his audio. Blair, that was, I don't know about you, but I was getting a little misty-eyed.
Can you hear me now?
In there.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, it sounds like we do have Linkon back.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Tell me again, what was the moment that you picked Kansas State?
So Kansas State has always they've held a special place in my heart. I got to go to games as a kid and watch Colin Klein and Lockett, all those great players. It's kind of where I developed my love for football. But I had a moment at my official visit. I didn't sleep at all from Saturday to Sunday, and I texted Taylor Bratt, the main recruiter. I texted him at about 7:15 in the morning. Can you bring me to the stadium? I just need some time to think. So, I went up to the stadium, section 227, C18, and kind of just let it all out right there because that's kind of where my journey started. I went to camp there June 9th, and June 10th got my first offer. They offered me with not having much film, just kind of having my background as an athlete. So that always meant a lot to me, how much they trusted me and what I was going to become. But I just kind of let it all out in that moment right there. Unfortunately, a lot of tears came out. Made the important calls I needed to make. But Coach Kleiman came up there eventually, and we were just sitting there alone with each other for a while. So we just we talked over a lot of things, and what I've been preaching to myself for a long time is, you can talk about academics, you can talk about culture, you can talk about whatever you want, but it's really that feeling. And that's one of the early conversations I had with Colin Klein. He told me, when you can't really explain the feeling, but when you know. So had that feeling at K-State, and throughout the week I just kind of cherished that moment. Obviously thought other things through, but that was the moment I kind of decided, this is where I can have the biggest impact as a person and not just as a player.
Lincoln, we love the attention to detail. You mentioned the section, you mentioned the exact seat number. I think that's something that a lot of K-State fans can relate to as well with their experiences inside that stadium. When you think about the future of the program, what is your message to those fans that are tuning in right now, the trajectory of this program, and what excites you the most?
Man, it can be a more exciting time in K-State history. I mean, I'll have my quarterback, Avery Johnson. I'll have Dylan Edwards as an athlete, and then you'll have me. So, it's exciting. Well, we got a lot of weapons, and but I wouldn't even say that's the most important thing. The most important thing in K-State is their culture. It's guys I want to be around. It's guys I can be friends with. It's guys I'd want to sacrifice everything for. So that definitely means everything to me. But K-State has a bright future. I'm just excited to be a part of it.
You certainly are. You said that it's a good time to be in the history of Kansas State. You are making history at Kansas State as the highest ranked recruit ever. Wildcats right now are so excited that you have chosen to be a part of them. Linkon Cure, thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of your big day. Go celebrate. Thank you. So exciting. What a win for Chris Kleiman and the Wildcats, landing one of the top in-state prospects in five-star tight end Linkon Cure. Right away, he is the highest-ranked commit in the Kleiman era and, as I just said, the highest-ranked commitment in Kansas State history. So with that, let's bring on Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. It's been a long time since we talked to him, but friend, big time right now in Kansas State, landing their first ever five-star recruit. What are they getting in Linkon Cure?
Well, first, I'm nervous my mic's not working.
It is.
It's good. Second, they're getting an incredible athlete. He's from the far western part of Kansas. I mean, he's in the mountain time zone. So when you have a 6'5" athlete that can, have sprinter speed and go get the ball, it's hard to compare him to what he's going up against on a week-to-week basis. But I think once he got to some of these camps and the 7-on-7 camps, I know where Tom Loy saw him earlier this year, his talent just kept showing up. And you up the competition, and he kept raising his game. This is just a great keep for Kansas State. It really is. It's getting tough to recruit in the state. People are beginning to figure out there's some players here. Out of the top 5 kids in the state, according to 24/7, he might be the only one that stays in state. So this is a really nice get for him. And as he mentioned, Chris Kleiman is amassing some real talent on that offensive side of the ball for future seasons.
Tim, he's obviously excited about the future there in the Little Apple, and I think he's now going to be a big-time recruiter for other prospects to potentially join him in that program. Who else should K-State fans be aware of as this cycle rolls along?
Well, to be honest, we've been so focused on this decision day. They've got plenty of other things going on right now, but all arrows were pointed to Linkon Cure. I mean, this I don't want to say a make or break player in this class, but it certainly elevates his class to something Kansas State fans haven't really seen. And Blair, you know this. K-State's never had highly ranked recruiting classes, and yet they always perform at a high level. This is a high level dude that the national analysts such as yourself locked in on and said this dude can play. So now I think they need to clean up this class, add a few more skilled guys, always on the line. They got defensive linemen are always a need for everyone, and that's true for Kansas State.
I love it. Tim, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate talking to you and getting the real lowdown on a massive day for Kansas State. You can check out more of his work at GoPowerCat.com. For all things Wildcats, Tim and the gang has you covered on Kansas State all year long. And tomorrow, right here on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel, #CommitHQ is back up and rocking with Javion Campbell's commitment, the top 247 edge. We'll pick between Alabama, Auburn, Miami, and his home state, Kentucky Wildcats. Tune in at 11:30 a.m. Eastern to find out who he selects. That'll do it for us today. For Blair and Gulo, I am Emily Proud, and this is the College Football Recruiting Show.